Welcome to the UFO Cast. My name's Michael.
And I'm Luke.
And we are working our way through the entirety of Jerry Anderson's Uberwork UFO. One series, 26 episodes, 26 podcasts, probably more, us just rambling.
Yep, it's a lot of fun. Yeah. And as we record, Michael, I believe our first episode has just gone out. So while we're kind of 3 episodes down the line, everybody else out there is listening to Identified. And we hope that they enjoy it.
And by everyone, we mean some people.
Some people, yeah.
Indeed.
Anybody who counts. Anybody who's anybody
to be fair,
is listening to our show.
People might have gone back and downloaded them all. So this could be literally hundreds of thousands of people. Or perhaps 2.
Well, I mean, we don't know how long the internet will last or how long the human race will last. It could be that you're listening to this podcast from millions of years in the future, finding out what people used to do in 2017. And we are a representative sample of that.
Right. We are going to waffle, but they probably would prefer if we waffled about the actual episode. So this time, we're talking about what we're going to call episode 4, which is Exposed.
Yeah.
Yeah, now, this is the one that kind of introduces one of our future main characters of UFO.
This is the one that answers that question, who's that face in the title sequence that you've been watching for the last 3 weeks and haven't a clue who it is?
Yeah, that's one of the issues with title sequences all around, really, isn't it? Especially ones of this time. You're sort of sitting there going, well, he must be important. Which is, you know, if you are paying attention, a bit of a giveaway, because the actual plot of the story involves him and you're not quite sure where it's going. But if you've watched the opening credits and you see that he's, you know, in uniform, you've got a pretty good idea where it's going. But that's because it's us. We've watched this we're watching it on DVD. We're not watching it like every Saturday evening or whenever your local ITV area decided to put it on.
Yes.
And then, you know, you'll only have seen the opening credits, 4 times?
Yep.
And they're very fast. For the time, they're ridiculously fast.
Oh, yes. I mean, the shot of him is frames long. As I very well know, having edited a promo, which hopefully you'll all have seen, of me and Michael inserted into the UFO title sequence, and those clips are very short. They're probably 10 frames long.
Which for the time was pretty impressive.
Pretty crazy. I'm trying to recall what I thought when I first watched this on DVD, because I literally just bought the box set and started watching. And obviously, there's a picture of him on the box set as you fold it out. I think there's a picture of him on one of the discs. But I do seem to remember kind of watching the title sequence for those first few episodes and going, who is that dude? Because he's not been in any episodes yet. And so when he did turn up, I think I probably was like, oh, right, okay, this is going to be the episode that introduces him into the show.
Yeah.
But it's still a good... I mean, I don't know about you, Michael, but it's a good ride from kind of when we first meet him to him joining Shadow at the end of the episode.
I mean, if you're coming from an outside point of view, this is actually not a bad starting point. Because... we haven't actually discussed the plot yet. I don't know whether we should just do a synopsis now and then talk about it, or actually talk about it as it evolves. What do you think?
I think we've tended to go with the second of those options thus far, haven't we?
Well, we just kind of throw ourselves into it. Yeah, fair enough.
And given that our first episode has only just gone out, we won't have had any feedback, so we can't kind of take any audience suggestions of how we do this. I will leave it entirely up to you, Michael.
Well, all right. Your basic plot, in a nutshell, is a guy is a test pilot and he's flying a plane, as test pilots so often do. And he happens to fly into the path of a shadow event, i.e. there's a flying saucer heading towards Earth in a complete, break with tradition. He gets ordered to get out of there. He ignores his orders. He starts filming everything. It all goes horribly wrong. The plane ends up crashing, and he decides to investigate in a kind of Invaders X-Files-y kind of a way. And Shadow put up some things in his way, because basically Shadow are the Men in Black. Arguably, we'll get back to that one in a minute. And this guy is portrayed as a bit of a hero, but also a bit of a loose cannon.
Yeah.
And he decides to take matters into his own hands, do his own research, and there's a lot of research and paperwork involved in this. And some really nice business with some slide machines. But no, sorry, I am, as always, going off topic. The guy eventually finds out that Shadow is there, confronts them. There's a few twists along the way, which I'm sure we're about to cover. And that's basically it. And then they go, ta-da, do you want to join? They go, yes, I would like to join you, you weird governmental villains. Because I'm a test pilot. I think that's it. Have I missed anything out?
No, I think that's generally the plot. But it's a good one. And as you say, it is a good introduction to the series for people who have not caught the first few episodes. I mean, as we've seen, as this was broadcast, and as far as I understand, this was intended to be episode 2. And it was, as far as we know, in a lot of regions, episode 2. So it does immediately kind of follow on from that. Okay, we've introduced the organisation from the inside, and now let's introduce the organisation from the outside as someone who suspects that UFOs are a thing. Because this is the thing; it's not his first UFO sighting, is it? He's had two prior as a test pilot, and so he's not going to let go of this. He's like a dog with a bone. He thinks there's some kind of conspiracy going on to cover it all up, and unlike in the real world, he's right. And it's interesting at the end how very quickly he's like, and I'm now going to join in on this conspiracy. Yes.
Well, there's the what was it when we were at university? When I was at university, we used to do one of the media studies sections. They discussed something called a punctum, which was a precise moment in a narrative that helps to define the entire narrative. And in this moment is when he's talking to, and I'm going to spoil this for later, he's talking to Morgan Le Fay. No, he's not. He's talking to the person who is the co-pilot's sister.
Well, or the person who's... So I'm not clear about this.
Yes.
So she has a name, and when she's introduced at the end as a shadow operative, she still has the same name, but she's clearly pretending to be the co-pilot's sister, right? She's not actually the co-pilot's sister.
Yeah.
But
and it's also Sarah Kingdom, but we'll get back to that because that's my Doctor Who reference. But she's in it. She's a brilliant actress. She's always good in everything.
Yep.
But my view is that the guy died with no family, the other test pilot.
Yeah.
Possibly to provide his whole character with motivation. He has no family. He takes life into his own hands, and that's why he ended up dead. That was my headcanon on this, right?
Right.
So clearly he's worked with this guy not a lot, otherwise he might have had a conversation about his family with some bloke. I mean, somebody you've worked with, do you know if they've got family or not? I don't know. You kind of might suspect something, but she turns up going, hello, I'm somebody who used to work with sister who he's never mentioned, but we'll chance our arm with that one.
Yeah.
And I'm going to help you investigate, possibly. That's kind of where that's going on.
Yes.
But this precise moment is when he explains to us, the audience, as well as to the sister, what would happen to the world if we all found out there really were UFOs and aliens. And for me, that's been an ongoing theme of loads of narratives and something that I actually think about quite a lot.
Yes, it's interesting. That does seem to be the default position of a lot of these kind of shows, is that if aliens do exist and are visiting Earth, then the authorities would want to cover that up. That seems to be the I mean, it's Torchwood, like you said, it's X-Files. There's so many shows on which that premise is part of it. And what do you think, Michael? Do you think that's actually true?
Well, I refer, my learned colleague, to the episode of Star Trek Next Generation, whose title I don't know, where the aliens in question are Riker and the Enterprise crew visiting another world with our current level of technology. So it's an alien world, but they've got a sort of 1980s level of tech. And the aliens, the Roswell aliens, are Riker who ends up, he's about to be alien autopsied. They've done an inverse. And there's a line near the end of that episode where they say, well, I'm just going to tell everyone that there's aliens out there. And they'll go, no one will believe you. And he goes, no, but what you could do is you could become a writer and start slipping it into popular culture so everyone's ready to believe that there's aliens when it finally turns up.
Yeah.
And a tiny part of me goes, that's why there's so much cool sci-fi.
Yeah.
There is a conspiracy to make us all go, yeah, we've all known about aliens for years. Of course they're out there.
Yeah.
And then they'll go, yeah, actually we were.
Yeah.
There is a tiny part of me that wants to believe that.
Yeah.
Wanting to believe, that's a whole dangerous area as well.
Yeah.
Because wanting to believe doesn't mean something's real.
Yep.
Yeah, because I also believe in physics and distances and things.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't know do you recall Crusade, the Babylon 5 spin-off?
Who do you think you're talking to? Of course I do.
And there's an episode of that where there's a similar scenario in that they basically shoot it as a film noir, and there's these two aliens who are convinced that humans have visited their planet, and it's basically a whole government conspiracy to control the population.
Yeah.
And then Gideon at the end is like, well, I don't like this manipulation, so I'm going to send a broadcast to the entire planet so they can all hear what their government has been doing and that humans are actually real, but that their government has been pretending to be humans for their own ends. It's brilliant. Right.
That was such an underrated series.
It was. But we have digressed so far.
I know. We've gone to Babylon 5 spin-off. We haven't even digressed to Babylon 5.
Yep.
We've gone past that and ended up in a place that's never repeated.
Yeah. So Paul Foster,
yes.
What do we think of him? Because we now know that he's going to be a main character in the show. I think he's in all the rest of the episodes, pretty much. So the main cast is now complete.
He's the Gwen.
What do we think?
Well, he is the Gwen. He's the person that we're meant to latch on to. He's the one asking the questions that the audience are asking, but of course he's a bit exciting and forthright. He's a bit of an action person, which you don't usually kind of get that as the person you're meant to identify with. But this is late 60s, early 70s TV drama, and perhaps you are. You know, this is the same time as The Persuaders and Department S and all that kind of thing with Jason King. So you've got to have someone, apparently, that you can relate to. And in this world, it's going to be heterosexual, good-looking bloke, because that's kind of the world we're in. So he's all right. He's a bit of a pain. The loose cannon aspect's a bit of a pain, but the narrative kind of demands it.
Yep.
I mean, you know, he's willing to break in to prove his point.
Yeah.
He's going to prove his point no matter what it takes.
Yeah.
And he's not going, which is apparently the characterizations of a good shadow operative, someone willing to ignore rules, which is weird if you look at Ed Bishop's character, who just wants everyone to do what he says all the time.
Yes,
unless of course his son's in danger, when he just ignores people. But we'll come back to that one another time.
No, you're right. It is interesting that the behaviour he displays in this episode is supposed to be his training to become a shadow operative. I mean, the fact that he hasn't been trained on any shadow equipment is a bit crazy. But you're right.
But he's a test pilot and can adapt.
He can adapt. He'll be able to fly a moonmobile and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, by this time next week, I'm completely sure.
Completely sure. But yes, I think it is slightly odd that he's then expected to come under Straker's command. And as we've already seen from the last few episodes, Straker is a very kind of straight down the line, by the book, follow what the computer says. And you can't really see Foster fitting into that mould, very much in the same way that Freeman doesn't. Maybe it's that kind of chalk and cheese thing that they're aiming for.
I mean, yeah, but also he fits into that fairly stereotypical maverick cop kind of does his way kind of character that you see time and time again in other shows.
Yep.
So he's not exactly a cipher, because there's not a lot of characters out there who believe in flying saucers. I mean, looking at his flat, he's got practically every book that was available on flying saucers in his little spinny bookcase.
Yes.
So that when he gets punched and it spins around, they all fly everywhere. it's practically product placement. I recognise at least 3 of those books from Wallsend Public Library.
Oh, so they're actually genuine books and not mocked up for the purposes of the show.
It's similar to that interview that they see at the beginning of one of the episodes,
right?
With that guy just talking to camera. He's a real person, and that's like real footage that they've just inserted.
Wow,
he was a genuine UFO expert, and he only died a few years ago. He was a UFO expert, and Christian and American, and he used to tour around talking to lots of people. He's well worth Googling. It's a very odd description. If they've created these fake pages to put us off the scent, somebody at a shadow convention or something like that, and he's not real, well done them, because I fell for it completely. But there was so many references, it looked real.
Okay, I will have to look him up.
When you type in about him, because it says in the titles as himself. But yeah, there are a lot of... Because apparently UFOs were huge news. It was like barely a month would go by without them being in the news. It was as if the world was ready for the revelation of aliens, and then they just didn't have the actual delivery to go, yeah, they're aliens. Yeah, everyone was ready for it. It just didn't happen. So yes, I'm not completely sure where I stand, because if you talk to people that I know, they'd just go, yeah, aliens, smashing. It just makes things slightly more complicated, but there'll be a load of people going, brilliant, the aliens have turned up, they can save us from ourselves. If you're that way inclined and think bad things about the human race. But in what way would that saving take? You know, do we need a cull, like is in the X-Files? Do we need less people?
Yeah.
Or do we need to be controlled more, as in a different series of the X-Files? Or that kind of thing? Or do the aliens just turn up and give us huge piles of free energy, which would destroy the economies of the world and things like that? So, and also, and this is something that I've written about in my own time, say the aliens turn up and they've got their own religions. Does that just confuse matters so much more? Because they might have evolved enough to have spaceships and things, but we're not going to have the same evolutionary pattern and social patterns on another world as ours. So they may have a completely different set of faith and, well, they'll definitely have a different set of moral codings. So, I mean, we managed to manage that, and we're all the same race. We're all human beings. So, literally, Lord knows what's going on there. So would they have evolved to a point where they just don't have any form of religion at all? And I'm differentiating between religion and faith here just to keep everyone happy, but you know what I mean?
Yep.
And there's some people, and I'm just saying this off the top of my head, there may be some people in America who might take it quite badly and react in exactly the way that Paul is implying people would do. They'd all go mental.
Yes.
And there are some other people who just not. I mean, you know...
It's always... So, yeah. I guess it's always really puzzled me, that attitude. And it was in an early episode of Torchwood, wasn't it, where Gwen talked to this dude who had lost his faith once he'd discovered aliens existed because they weren't compatible with his existing theology. Yeah. And I guess it's a hangover from the theology of earlier times before we discovered that the Earth wasn't the centre of the solar system, let alone the universe. There was this idea that we were somehow a special part of or possibly the pinnacle of God's creation. And I don't think there's any... Well, as a Christian, I don't think there's any biblical warrant for that. And so I'm always slightly startled by people who think that's a central tenet of the faith. And so, and like you say, if aliens came along and had their own religions, like when we already mentioned Babylon 5, that's a really big theme of that show. I mean, yes, there would be conversations to have and theology to work out, but it wouldn't be a defeater for anything. It would just be, the universe is even more amazing than we previously knew. I don't think it would confirm atheism or theism one way or the other. UFO as a show is not interested in any of those things because, like so many TV shows, the aliens are just the out-and-out bad guys, pretty much. We'll have a bit more on that next week.
Yes.
but it is an interesting thing nonetheless, and Foster does rightly bring it up as a reason for Shadow to exist.
So I'm sure we'll talk about that in much more depth. But basically, your plot is that no one else in the world has realised that Straker is ex-military. Now, right, let's picture the real world for a minute. You've got a lot of people who were in the war who then went on to be in TV. I mean, let's face it, there are time and time again people talking about, this production manager on Doctor Who, he ran the unit like he was still in the army, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely no problems with that. People just go, yeah, that's fair enough, right? But Straker's trying to keep it a secret that, well, it apparently is a bit of a secret, that he was in the military. And that here's a newspaper cutting of you in uniform. Ooh, what, people can't just have another career? And also, is this possibly, I don't know, Lou Grade or maybe it's Jerry Anderson's secret, big secret, that this is actually much more of a documentary? He was a producer, like Straker is supposed to be of the studio, and secretly he was running an Earth Defence Force thing. And if anybody asked any questions, he'd just, oh no, that's just a design for a model. So is it wish fulfillment by Anderson, or was Jerry Anderson actually secretly running an organisation? Because Straker, I don't know why he's down as his secret organisation cover. It's a film studio. How much attention is that going to attract? I just don't get it.
I think from a fictional point of view, it does make very little sense. From a production point of view, obviously it makes a huge amount of sense because
that is absolute
filming
genius,
it
to
at
be
a
honest.
film studio.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that I really love about UFO, is that you get some insights into the filmmaking process through the fact that the show is set in a film studio. And this was that first example of, that's how you do bullet holes in a wall on a film set.
Yeah.
And it's sort of this kind of this meta level of going, so that's how all bullets are done in a TV show, but we're actually deliberately saying that that's how these particular bullets have been done in this TV show because they are fake.
Yeah, with his sonic gun,
his gun
thing. Yeah, but it is interesting because he's like, I'm going to threaten you, but I'm not, and it's just very strange because I've got no issue with somebody being ex-military and then working in a film studio. That's not a problem. But
yeah.
And apparently, and I don't know if this is one of those urban myths, that the TV studio where they shot and where Shadow was based is the same TV studio that eventually was pulled down and the EastEnders lot was built on top of.
I had not heard that.
The exteriors of EastEnders are actually part of Shadow Base, which is a whole meta level, especially if you want to do dimensions in time.
which we're not going to do.
Which we're not touching, right? We are not touching that. But I heard that years ago, and it was one of those facts I squirreled away, and I don't know if it's a true fact or not. But if it is, that makes me either very happy that it's still going, but I don't even know if the EastEnders lot is still where it originally was.
EastEnders fans, please write into the show, ufocast@yahoo.com, and let us know whether any of this is true.
Yeah, because otherwise I'm filling up a huge section of this show with nonsense.
Really?
Which is going to be
like that.
No
like we're not
change.
normally doing that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Can we talk about Dr. Jackson for a minute?
Please.
He plays a reasonably small role in this episode, but he crops up again, and I think he's possibly, well, he's certainly one of my favourite characters in the entire show because he's so slippery and slimy, and yes, he works for Shadow, but he's not the nicest of people. He seems rather amoral, I think. And
yes, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
So when I first watched UFO, and I've not had this confirmed anywhere else, but I'm pretty certain it's true. I watched it and I was like, he looks familiar. Where have I seen him before?
Yeah.
And it dawned on me that he looks like a puppet from Captain Scarlet.
Which is fair enough, because the sculptors did base their puppets on other people.
So bear with me on this one. So the Lunaville 7 episode, where Captain Scarlet and Captain Blue and Lieutenant Green go up to the moon to find out what the Mystrons are doing on the moon, has a Mystron agent in it called Orson. Or no, maybe it's the sequel. Anyway, one of the episodes of Captain Scarlet on the moon has a Mystron agent called Orson. Yes. And he looks very much like Vladek Sheybal, the actor who plays Dr. Jackson in UFO. Yes. And I seem to recall reading that he was a personal friend of the Andersons. So although Captain Scarlet comes prior to UFO, it's possible that they knew him and knew what he looked like. And indeed, somebody in the model department modelled the puppet on him. I don't know whether that's true. Again, if anybody knows if that's true, I'd love to have that confirmed.
It's exceptionally likely. Knowing how that sort of thing works in general, you do get, from a sculpting point of view, you do get somebody's face in mind. You meet people and you go, you've got a great face, and you just want to reproduce it, especially if they're getting someone in to do the voice and things like that.
Yeah.
So I have heard repeatedly that the Anderson companies used to do that sort of thing. So I wouldn't be surprised even the slightest. But if you Google him and do him an IMDb, he just turns up everywhere.
Yeah.
It's like, how can you not have... This guy was definitely a jobbing actor. He was like the Bert Kwok of
Polish people, of Eastern Europeans.
Yeah, of Polish people, generic Eastern European people available. He was Ed Bishop called himself Rent-A-Yank, so I suppose he'd be Rent-A-Pool then, or something like that. But yeah, he was. Isn't there Bond connections as well?
He was in From Russia with Love, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, I know he turns up at the end, all beamy and smiley, it's like, hey, I'm fine, I wasn't evil at all. And you're going, well, you are a bit.
Yep.
But I'm wearing a polo neck jumper and waving and smiling, I must be lovely. And you're going, not really, you're still a bit questionable.
Yep. And, just to fill you in, he's in 10 episodes of UFO. This is the first of those. So he's quite a sizable role in future episodes, and he's the character that you love to hate, I think.
Yes,
and I'm
at
really
least
looking
one
forward
of those
to seeing
episodes
more of
he
him.
appears to be working for a different company, though.
Yes,
which I'm sure we'll cover when we reach that point.
Yeah,
but yeah. Anyway, so he is a Bond villain. He's in everything. He genuinely is, and that's great. And the character, he always gives 100% in a performance. He's so cool.
Yeah.
You are so right. So, do we want to discuss the very end with the reveal, the weird reveal?
What, I'm going to put a red light and a fan on you?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to put a red light and a fan on you. I'll drag you around my studio while we talk about aliens. And then eventually I'll go, go on then, I'll show you the truth. Come into my office. I'll talk into my cigarette box. Weird.
Yeah.
And then it all goes a bit Thunderbirds and they go underground.
Yep.
Why they haven't got an ordinary lift is beyond me. Does everyone else go to work through his office as well? Or is there a back door? Oh, no, there is. There is, because in the episode Court Martial, he just runs out an ordinary fire exit.
Yep.
So obviously Ed's the only person who gets to travel in the cushy office lift
we
thing.
We see Alec Freeman go in the first episode as well. So it's possibly kind of top shadow personnel get to go in the producer's office, and everybody else has to go in the back door, or possibly sleeps down there permanently.
Yeah,
because Aishia, the female operative, the one who actually gets the occasional line, she always seems to be there. I'm like, does she ever go off duty?
Well, she's only got the one name, so yeah. What's going on there? And that's the actress only has one name. Perhaps they just need to look after her and keep her there.
The actress has one name, and that's the name of her character too, right? I'm
pretty sure, yeah. I will check in the end credits when it comes up, but I was watching it going, that's in the wrong place. Why is that the actress's name? And then I thought, perhaps she's an international supermodel, or she's a singer or something that I was unaware of.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I did really get annoyed at is like they've made him a little membership card.
Yes.
It's like here's your shadow ID. What? It's like for a start, you have to like pose for those, and you just give. Oh yeah, we thought you'd signed up anyway. Here's your ID.
Here's your
When
ID.
did you start last week? Right? Can we talk about the pension and the wage structure? And oh no, I'm just going to smile and walk out of the room.
Yeah.
No, that's not how job interviews are supposed to go. At the very end, they say, "Have you got any questions for us?" Well, yeah. When did the aliens arrive?
Yeah.
How long have they been here? What exactly do you know? No, I'll just do a sly grin to camera and walk off because I'm going to undergo some rigorous training.
Yeah.
Which clearly not everyone in Shadow has done.
No.
Because there's a lot of different body shapes in there.
That's true.
I've fast forwarded to the end credits now, and I don't think that person is listed yet. Yes, she's just called Shadow Operative.
Shadow Operative.
Yes. There we go. So that's nice.
Talking of Shadow Operatives, can we talk about the mysterious cloning of Joan Harrington?
We can talk about anything you want. Please,
did you
fill me
notice
in
this?
some more.
Well,
which one's Joan?
So
I probably didn't. So which one's Joan? Because I am indeed Joe Public.
In the first 3 episodes on Moonbase, you've got Lieutenant Ellis, who sits in the middle, and then you've got Dolores Mantes' character, who's called Nina. Yes, she's on the left, and then you've got Joan Harrington, who sits on the right. Okay.
Yep.
You're picturing the setup in Moonbase, right?
I certainly am, all with their lovely purple wigs.
Yes. And in this episode, Lieutenant Ellis isn't there, and Nina is sitting in the middle, and Joan is on both the right and the left.
Excellent.
And there is not enough time for her to have run from one side to the other in the way that the scene is edited. So you're like, hang on, you've just used 2 different camera angles of the same person sitting on opposite sides of the room, which I thought was quite amusing. And
they didn't do something weird with crossing the line then?
No, I'm pretty well. So unless the one shot was flipped, I'd have to go back and watch it and see if she's actually sitting at a genuinely different console. But you know what? It appeared to me.
I am so going to rewind this episode and watch this while we chat. I so am doing that now.
You can tell me if that's what's happened.
I am. I'm rewinding far too slowly at the moment. Either guy's breaking into his office backwards, which is the best stealthy technique I've ever seen.
Yes. Can we talk about the spinning bookcase moment?
We can.
Because
of course we can.
It's absolutely hilarious. So,
it's gloriously shot.
It is. This is the thing.
What's your issue? Is it the heavies?
No. Yes, the heavies are comical because you've got the guy with the pudding basin haircut and the moustache and the dark glasses.
Which is pretty bad, yeah.
Yes, he's just ridiculously comical. No, I mean I enjoyed it visually because you've got the setup where you go. We've got a chap with a slide projector, and it's on this spinning thing. So clearly they're going to spin it round. So you have all these interesting light things going on, whilst they duff him up and pull his apartment apart. This is shadow sanctioned bullying. As well, the fact that this is part of his training is like, can we beat him up? Is that going to put him off? No. Okay, well, he's clearly the kind of person we want to work for us.
You see, it's a lot more Torchwoody. That is the sort of nonsense that the maverick Captain Jack would sanction.
Yes,
it would just be ridiculous. Right, I've gone all the way back to the beginning. I'm almost at Moonbase, but yeah. So there's this bullying going on, and.
Yeah. But I guess it fits in with what we know from Straker already. We've seen previously that he's prepared to inject an alien with a truth drug to try and get the truth. He's quite ruthless, actually, in his pursuit of his goals, which seem to be protect Earth from UFO attacks. And when we do get hold of aliens, try and find out as much as we can about them so we can use it against them in future.
Yeah.
And so he's not beyond using questionable methods to achieve his ends.
That is a very polite way of putting it. Absolutely right, yeah. But his questionable methods have no complete uniformity. Okay, I'm now watching Blonde Woman, back to the centre. Clearly the boss is in the loo or she's on a lunch break. So we've got the second in command. Right, they're taking off. Okay, there's a large amount of model shots. Nobody on board the little spaceships is moving because they're all models. She has moved to the other side of the room. It's not a reverse shot. It's a completely separate thing.
Hurrah!
Yep.
I'm correct.
Hurrah. So perhaps there is some sort of cloning. I think it's because they were expecting everyone still to have a tiny black and white TV, and they just got to go, it's some skinny woman in a silver suit with a purple wig. Check.
Yep.
That's all they were expecting Joe Public to do.
Yes.
But you know what? We're not Joe Public anymore.
We're like, actually, we care about the fact that these three women are individual characters.
Yeah.
Who all get to speak. That's the thing I like about it, is that there's no superfluous female characters in Moonbase. They all...
Yeah.
I mean, there are only the three of them, but they all get to talk. There's no extras, unlike on...
You definitely get the feeling that the lady, whoever sits in the middle, in the command chair, let's call it that, is in charge.
Yeah.
And when you discover that somebody else might be in charge of Moonbase, not giving away any spoilers, you go, oh, I thought it was an all-female operation. I thought that was like part of... They discovered something about women in space, and that's why they were in charge. I don't know, because that's possibly the direction they were going in.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure, but they perhaps did.
I think we're perhaps reading too much into some of these production decisions.
And that is how we hang.
That's how we roll.
It certainly is. We definitely do read far... I'm willing to read far too much into absolutely anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't have a podcast which goes on for 45 minutes to an hour each time.
It goes on longer than the episode quite often, the episode that we're talking about. So, yes, we didn't mention the bit on board the plane where the psychiatrist, the really cool multi-actor bloke, is trying to convince Forrester that he's just wrong because absolutely everything in the whole universe is moving relative to where you are, which I'm not quite sure what his argument is. Yes, we're all moving, but I still see a flying saucer.
Yes, I think he's just.
And then he's wrestled to the ground while on a plane by the stewardess.
Yes, it's like,
which is not the sort of service you want from Qantas at all.
No,
or Shad Air. Why is Shad Air not like? Sorry, is it a real company that just happens to have a name a bit like Shadow? Because if you were at the airport and you saw a company called Shad Air, you'd go, "Who's that?" You'd try and find out, and you'd go, "Oh no, they're a secret government organisation." Why do they have like a name? Sorry.
Well, it's also the fact that like the Shadow mobiles have writing on the outside. Skydiver has writing on the outside.
Yes.
There are Shadow uniforms that people wear outside of the base. There's enough.
That's true.
There's enough going on to kind of give it away that there's this secret organisation, but people somehow don't cotton on.
It's actually worse than when that episode of, I think it was series 2 of Torchwood, the first couple of minutes where the woman at the lights goes, "Bloody Torchwood," and you're like, well, people would talk about Shadow like this because they're all walking around in the uniforms with the company name emblazoned on the side.
Yes,
you are so right. So I hadn't even got that far.
But I that's just, I mean, it's just part of.
It is
telling
it's
a TV story. I don't think it's a problem. It's just one of those things where when you overanalyze what the actual TV universe, there's always going to be inconsistencies.
Right. Here's my counter argument to that.
Right. This
is Jerry Anderson's company's first apparently grown-up TV show.
Yeah.
And it's aimed at adults. As it goes on, it's quite clearly aimed at adults.
Yeah.
There are episodes which you have to be, right? And we get that. But if, as a viewer, you'd been used to watching the other Anderson products, you'd get on. This is definitely a crossover point for his evolution, because you've got the Thunderbirds mindset of... But that's actually a better secret organisation, because they really go out of their way to be secretive. Here, they just give people, retcon, let's call it that.
Yep.
And then they go away, and that's fine. But they've got more kit, and they're everywhere. I don't know, because you've got the kit levels of Thunderbirds, but you've got the secrecy that would come later, or perhaps earlier with Joe 90, I don't know. But you are right, they're all... The mindset is definitely, it's a military, well, it's run on military lines, as we discover later on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I suppose that's kind of right. And people will just assume, oh, it's just another military submarine, or it's just somebody else from the military.
Yeah. And we do find out later in the series that this is a body that is funded by several governments.
Yeah, it's implied that it's the United Nations because you've got that exterior shot of the United Nations with something very odd in the river next to them. If you look closely at that shot, there's something very strange moving along the river.
Okay, well, we'll come to that in a later episode.
Yes. So yeah, it's almost a United Nations effort.
Yes, like UNIT.
Like UNIT, yes, it's UNIT with kit.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it just is.
Yeah.
There's nothing else you can say beyond that.
Yep.
So we've dealt with what happens. We've dealt with that. Whether he's right or not about what would happen about flying saucers being introduced. The thing is, these aliens are apparently here to steal our bodies.
Yes.
And at the moment in the narrative, that is what we're supposed to believe.
Yeah.
Whether that changes or not, I can categorically say I don't know because I've not seen all of the episodes yet. I've got a feeling it won't change because the episodes weren't shown in order everywhere. But that's just how I'm leaning.
Yeah.
I literally don't know.
Okay.
Because, I don't know. Don't spoil it.
I'm not going to spoil it.
Good.
I mean, I suppose it's interesting that actually, beyond the initial UFO incident, that's it for the UFOs, because the story is, as we've said, this investigation into what happens, and it becomes this detective story. And next week we'll get the aliens back again doing some more stuff. But for now, this was a very kind of Shadow Earth-centric episode.
Yeah, there's not a lot of UFO in UFO.
Yeah.
But I suppose that's the thing. It's like, let's all discuss the monster rather than have him in. Have him turn up.
What I like about this episode is it starts to demonstrate the versatility of the format, because we had quite similar beginnings to the first couple of episodes. We had the whole kind of the UFO comes to Earth, they fail to hit it, etc. And then we had a slightly different episode last time with Flight Path, and then again we have actually here's a kind of human-based story that we can do with the format of the show, which leads you to kind of think, oh, actually, there is a variety of stories that we can tell with this format. I'm intrigued as to what we're going to have next week. I'm intrigued as to how Paul Foster's character develops. We've started to get to know Ed Straker. We've got to know Freeman a little bit less. You get the sense that this is bringing on a new leading man. How is it going to develop? How are the relationships going to develop? We've already talked about the fact that they're two very different characters, and that's setting up quite a nice scenario for the rest of the show. It feels like UFO has now established itself after a few episodes, and we're now into kind of the meat of the series. And not in the sense of any modern story arc kind of way, because that isn't how TV was made back then. And as we've said, the episodes were shown in many different orders. But I think there is a kind of progression in the building of this world that we're kind of coming into this week.
No, that makes absolute sense. There is definitely more to this show than just saying it's a puppet show, but they've replaced the puppets with people. That's too simplistic, and it's wrong, and it's not giving the programme enough credit at all.
Yeah. But I think that's also not giving the puppets enough credit either.
You know what? You're completely right. I mean,
I was
used
watching
to do
an
my
episode
fair share of puppeteering, so I completely understand that.
Yeah. I was watching an episode of Thunderbirds this morning, Ricochet, and was surprised, because I haven't watched Thunderbirds for a while, was surprised at the level of characterisation between the two guys who need rescuing. They've played this kind of the fact that they hate each other and they're locked in a tin can flying around in space. There's actually quite a lot of that developed in the episode. There is a kind of sophistication to the characterisation, and that comes through into UFO. It's just we get the as you say, the human performances rather than the puppet ones.
True. Have you been watching the new Thunderbirds? Thunderbirds Are Go.
So I saw the first half of the first season back when it was on ITV, and I haven't kept up with it since.
They're in series 2 now, and I've banked a few episodes in order to watch them with my daughter.
Right.
Where I think I've seen every single episode apart from these ones that are the last 3.
Yeah.
I think we're halfway through season 2 now. and Series 2. And it's glorious. But I think one of the nicest things was... because Parker's Parker...
Yep.
And the rest of the characters are fine. They've gone for an ethnicity on Brains, which I'm kind of completely fine with, because it's almost a reboot.
Yeah.
And the ships look wonderful. Thunderbird 2 is impossible to film, even if you redesign it slightly from a different angle badly. It's just so nice. And you've got your new Shadow S and things like that. But one of the interesting things is it's quite clearly a new Lady Penelope. And Fab 1 has definitely had an upgrade. But there's an episode with Sylvia Anderson turning up as the old Lady Crichton.
Right.
And she used to know Jeff. And it's implied that the new Lady Penelope is a new Lady Penelope.
I didn't. I have not watched that far into it.
And it's if you want to talk about meta levels, watch it. Obviously, they made it before she sadly passed. And they've got the original Sylvia Anderson doing the voice. And I was sat there just wetting myself laughing. And my daughter's going, "What's going on?" And I'm going, "This is just brilliant." And that was the point where I realised that the same level of love and just respect for the original series is through the new one. And you don't always get that, but by any stretch of the imagination. But it's well worth throwing yourself into. It really is. So I am very fond of the new Thunderbirds, and I know they're not puppets, but you know what? Things have moved on. Yeah, and it's fine, because the new Captain Scarlet was fantastically well written, terribly served by ITV. Yeah, it was fantastically well written as a series.
Well, it was written by Phil Ford.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I'm not going to rain any aspiration. I'm not going to say anything bad about that, because it just was great. Yeah. It was. I used to tape the entirety of the Saturday morning TV programme on a video, and then just fast forward just so I could get the bits, because they chopped the episode up into so many sections. In order to watch it without wanting to kill someone, you had to sort of have it taped and then go for it yourself, because it was so badly served, and it was the only reason to watch Saturday morning TV at that point.
Do you remember when they broadcast Thunderbirds in French?
I absolutely do not remember that.
We're going off on a complete tangent now, but we're so into far through the looking glass. So a few years after Thunderbirds, I think it was a few years after Thunderbirds was broadcast when I was a kid, they broadcast Thunderbirds at a rate of 5 minutes a day in French.
No.
Yes.
Sorry, why? Was it to help you learn French?
Presumably, yes. And I only caught it like once or twice, and there were these little 5 minutes. So it must have taken like 10 days to broadcast an episode.
Yeah. A small question: was there any prescription medication involved at all? Were you well? Because I cannot remember any of this. It's glorious if it's true, and I'm hoping it is. For everyone involved's sake, I'm hoping it is.
Well, okay, so I have been known to invent entire TV shows, because there's a TV show that I remember from my childhood and none of my family remember it, and they're convinced I made it up.
There's a word for that. It's called being a producer.
In fact, I'm going to throw it out here just in case anybody can kind of confirm it, because I've never really met anybody who remembers it. So it was about the people of Poptown.
Yep.
And it was this kind of like wooden diorama, probably, I don't know, 20 feet across maybe, and the presenter would stand behind it and move the characters around and tell the story, right? And my recollection is that this was presented by Rolf Harris, and that's it. That's all I remember. And whether it was part of a larger Saturday morning thing or an afternoon thing, I don't know.
And you're feeling better than to Google it?
Well, so before all the allegations about him and the truth of how horrible a person he was came out, I emailed his website and said, "Can you confirm whether this was a thing that Rolf Harris did back in the 80s?" And strangely enough, I didn't get a reply.
Any email with that as a title heading might have been ignored.
Yes, so it's no, I'm pretty certain. In fact, I can ask my family. Do you remember when Thunderbirds was broadcast in French? And I'm sure they will tell me that yes, they remember that.
Without question.
And any listeners would like to confirm, email ufocast@yahoo.com. Can tell me if they also remember the 5-minute snippets of Thunderbirds broadcast in French. Oh, we have rambled.
We have. Do you want to do the bit that we have in every episode, where we see if we know any of the actors from anything else.
Yes, well, you've already mentioned one of them, but we'll get to her because we're going to start with Anderson Watch.
Right.
So, who was in this episode from previous...
Zimmerman.
Matt Zimmerman.
Matt Zimmerman, yes.
Who was Matt Zimmerman?
Apparently, according to this, he was with Jim Wade.
And who was he in previous Anderson shows?
I don't know, but I know the name.
So, he was...
I do know the name, yeah.
He was Alan Tracy in Thunderbirds.
Of course he was.
However, and it's we're going to have a slot, actually, because we've had this several times now, it's Dub of the Week...
Ooh.
Because I remember when I first watched this, and I was like, I don't remember hearing Matt Zimmerman's voice, and then I went back and was like, that's not Matt Zimmerman's voice, and again, I'm pretty sure he's being dubbed by Jeremy Wilkin, who played Virgil, and who turns up as a skydiver operative in UFO. And my suspicion is that what happened with this was that on the days where it came to do the dubbing of stuff, if they needed to redub an actor who'd had a small bit part and who wasn't then available, they were like, well, who have we got around? Oh, we've got Jeremy. Well, Jeremy does lots of voices for us, so we'll just get him to dub this small bit part. So
yeah, because I've got a memory, and it might be cheating. What you do is you pay somebody at the time. This obviously was affected by the unions. You pay someone a small fee for a non-speaking part, and then you pay somebody else to the going rate for dubbing.
Yeah,
and you end up with a speaking part on the camera.
So there we go.
Oh, so you've got big. These are reasonably big names. They're not just walk-on parts. That's what confuses me.
Yeah.
You do that with someone who can't act.
Yeah, but we know that Matt Zimmerman could. So
well, yeah, that's what's thrown me.
One other sci-fi thing to highlight for him, though, and I hadn't realised it till I looked him up, is he plays Shooty in the TV version of Hitchhiker's Guide.
Oh, Shooty and Bang Bang.
Shooty and Bang Bang, yeah, and he plays...
It isn't easy being a cop.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Get me drunk enough and I can do the entire first 3 hours doing all the voices. So, no one gets me drunk anymore.
Okay, let's go off on a brief aside. Obviously, this will not be news by the time this episode goes out, but yesterday they announced that there will be a hexagonal phase of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy coming to radio.
Yeah.
Which is based on the Owen Colfer book.
Yeah, that's been whispered about for a while.
Yes, and it's been confirmed. And I tweeted yesterday that I'm torn because I love the cast, but I hated the book.
Yes.
So...
The thing is, and I've got absolutely nothing, no offence to that man, but as he says in the introduction, you start trying to write like Douglas Adams, and then your ears start to bleed after 20 minutes. That's true of him, but if you read any of James Goss's work, you can write like Douglas Adams.
Yes, so, well, I have City of Death.
Yes.
But I haven't read much of it yet, so...
The Pirate Planet's spot on.
Okay, well, I'll have to get that as well.
It's tremendously good, yeah. And The Cricket Men's coming out later as well.
Is it? Oh, interesting.
Yes, he's doing that.
Brilliant.
And I think that's the end of Douglas Adams's pencil case. After that, they've ran out of all of the stuff that was written on the back of an envelope.
I have to say that Terry Pratchett, Please Steamroller My Hard Drive, is a much better way to go because you can't then have all these little bits of things that you wrote but didn't finish dredged up over the years.
Although there is stuff from the apparent sequel of Good Omens appearing in the new Good Omens.
Right.
But then again, that's Gaiman, so we can let that off because he's still with us.
Okay.
Yeah. And I also heard that Neil Gaiman once wrote Good Omens, sent Pratchett the thing and sent him the first half and went, "What do you think?" And Terry Pratchett sent him back the entire finished book. Right, that's how that worked. So that's not really a cooperation. That's just some bloke going, "Can I finish this? I've got 5 minutes." So,
it's brilliant.
That might be a myth. Yes.
Well, it's a good one if it is. Can we talk about Doctor Who Watch?
We can.
And you've already mentioned her, so I will let you take the lead on this one with the first person that we have from Doctor Who.
Here is the majority of my notebook, the second page where I've got all the stuff about Exposed. The very bottom, there's a box, and it just says, Jean Marsh. It's Morgan Le Fay. No, it's Sarah Kingdom. No, it's Richard the Lionheart's sister. No, it's the ex-Mrs. Pertwee. No, it's the woman who created Upstairs Downstairs. Oh, it's Thingy. Right, that's what I've got written down. That's basically Jean Marsh.
Jean Marsh, the wonderful Jean Marsh. Sadly, slightly underused in this episode.
Without question.
But she's great. And she has 3 stonking Doctor Who roles, 2 of which responsible for... No, Douglas Campfield, the director, was responsible for back in the 60s. Yes. And she... Well, depending on your opinion, she is either a Doctor Who companion or she's not. But she gets to run around with the First Doctor for the better part of 12 episodes before dying horribly.
Yes.
Having earlier in the previous season played, as you said, Richard I's sister, and she's brilliant in that. Yes. I watched that recently. And then she gets to come back against Sylvester McCoy Morgaine in Doctor Who does Arthurian legend. So
now, I know this isn't a popular opinion, especially amongst podcasters, but I just adore that story. Right? Even the writer of the story doesn't like it, right? But I absolutely love that.
Oh, give me Battlefield over Ghostlight any day.
If Big Finish could produce a series of, Merlin Unbound, where you've got a different actor playing different incarnations of Merlin as the Doctor against Morgan Le Fay, I'd buy that in a heartbeat. It would just be wonderful. I could so do that.
Yeah.
It would make me so happy. I absolutely adore that story. It was one of those ones, like when I was a kid and it was the 80s and they showed it and there was the Dalek. It was, the white Daleks turned up and you were like, yay, Doctor Who's back. And then the next week it was the Candyman and Doctor Who was, not back. But Battlefield for me made me go, yes, get in. This is the programme I loved. It's fine.
Yep.
So, I will always have a soft spot for that particular story. I think it's got some brilliant McCoy performances in it. Very happy with it. And she's great. So, and was she the first Mrs. Pertwee or the second one?
I think she was the first Mrs. Pertwee.
Yes.
Yeah.
But she's not Sean's mum.
No, I think that's Ingeborg.
Yes. Yes, a woman so clever, she didn't speak English, and within a year, she'd written a novel after moving here.
Blimey.
Yeah. She's got pretty impressive intellect.
Yeah. Cool. So that's Jean Marsh.
Yes.
And the second person in this week's Doctor Who Watch is, of course, Arthur Cox.
Arthur Cox,
who plays the construction manager / shadow agent Louis, who is running around building sets for...
Yeah, your normal staff in Shadow have got jobs in the TV studio upstairs as well. That's not good.
Well, he has. I'm not sure about anybody else.
Fair enough.
And he is one of those people who has 2 Doctor Who performances that are separated by quite a number of years, because he was in 1968's The Dominators as Cully, playing a 2-hearted character before we knew that the Doctor had 2 hearts. Ooh. And then he was in Matt Smith's debut as Mr. Henderson, the guy whose car Amy traps the Doctor's tie in.
You know what? I saw that written down, but I couldn't place him at all. But yes, got it now.
So yes, and then of course we have to do Prisoner Watch for this week.
Yes. Now, I've not been rewatching Prisoner lately, but is the man who runs the aeroplane company, the one where the test pilot plane comes from, is he from The Prisoner?
No.
Because he looked very... I was thinking he was actually somebody from the War Games as well, so I've lost it. Because he looked so familiar.
Because I looked him up and went, okay, he seems to be one of these actors who's been in a lot of stuff, but the answer is no. And I looked at his credits and couldn't really see anything else that I'd seen him in.
Then hit me with Prisoner Watch.
Yes. So Prisoner Watch. Michael Billington. Paul Foster himself is credited on A Change of Mind as Second Woodland Man, which basically means he was one of the people that beat Patrick McGowan up that week. And I think he has a line, but it's a very small role for him. And he's one. I think he gets to wear one of those orange and white stripy jumpers that people in the village wear.
Ah, right. I should keep an eye out.
So not a particular starring role, but he did appear in The Prisoner. But yes, that's it for actors this week.
Well, you know what? That was quite good. If, like I said, it's definitely one to watch as an introduction. If you just want to show someone what it's like. And you know what? I know they're the unsung heroes of the story, but the model shots in this are so good that you don't mention them.
Yeah.
And that is, at its core, what visual effects or special effects, whichever you want to call them, are for.
Yeah.
If you just go, yeah, that's the aeroplane they're flying in, and only afterwards you go, actually, that wasn't the aeroplane they were flying in at all. That was just a model.
It was a model of the aeroplane they're flying in, yeah.
But you just accepted it because you know the spaceships aren't real, but the Earth-based stuff, every so often you go, oh yeah, that's not real. And when you have to remind yourself, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So I know we've rambled, we've gone off topic, but you know what? I think you'll forgive us.
And we will see you next time with the episode Survival. You have been listening to the UFO Cast with me, Luke, from Tmudwup.
And me, Michael, from the Tin Dog Podcast.
Please get in touch with the show, let us know what you think and any feedback you might have at ufocast@yahoo.com.
Or on Twitter at UFO_cast, available on Stitcher and iTunes.